Hi there, I'm Kevin Benedict, Principal Analyst with the Center for Digital Intelligence. And I want to thank all you guys for joining us today. I'm really excited because we get to focus on a subject that's as hot can be. It's the industrial Internet of Things. And my guest today is Terrence O'Leary. Terrence, thanks for joining us.
Kevin, good to see you again, and thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Now, Terrence, where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada.
All right. Now, it's my understanding that you've been kind of crisscrossing the states here over the last 10 days or so. How many air miles have you put on your loyalty program?
I'd say in the last 10 days, I'm easily 15,000 miles.
All right. Well, good for you. So it's a good time it's just a good time to be a part of the industrial Internet of Things industry. And let's jump right in and let me have you tell me, now you're Executive Vice President there at AMI Global.
Yes.
Tell me kind of what is your niche and what are you guys focused on?
We're focused on exactly that, industrial Internet of Things, but very specifically where you'll hear a lot today, in the Industry 4.0 talk and digital transformation talk, a lot of companies are focused on that factory floor. We are focused on the products that the factory floor is producing. So how do you bring those products that manufacturers are producing to a digital environment? So that is our niche. That is what we're focused on.
Okay, so that seems like Internet of Things at scale.
Absolutely.
Okay, I get the picture here. Now tell me, what are the kinds of, so sensors can be on anything. What kinds of sensors do you focus on a category of sensors, or can you cover everything?
We really can cover everything. The technology that we've created is completely vertical neutral or market agnostic. So we're doing a lot, not just with sensors, but machines themselves, with a heavy focus over the years on the pumping industry, fluid handling, water, oil and gas, energy with variable frequency drives. So connecting something as simple as a sensor to something as complicated as, a machine where we're talking a Modbus language.
Very good. So for those that don't have a deep industry knowledge here about the industrial Internet of Things, can you paint us a picture of what that ecosystem looks like? Because the sensors have to connect to something, and that something has to add value to the user. So paint a scenario. What does that ecosystem look like out there?
Sure, that's a great question, Kevin. And when we're talking industrial Internet of Things, the internet is obviously the focal point here. The machines that we're connecting are the focal point here. So how do you get that machine, something that's out in the field, that is what we like to call an orphan baby out there, how do you bring it to life? How do you bring it into your family as a manufacturer? And to do that, you have to lay that foundation, which first is going to be connecting that device to the internet. So how do you do that? You've got to have a solution, a hardware gateway that connects to the machine, that connects to the sensor, that brings the machine language in to where it can be processed. From there, to get that information to the internet, you've got to transmit that up. So how do you transmit that up? You can do it in a variety of communication protocols, from cellular when we're talking about remote assets to fixed locations with an Ethernet connection, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, even 900 megahertz radio. So to connect all the dots in that ecosystem, Kevin, you've got to take a product that's in the field, you've got to bring that data in someplace, make sense of that data, and then bring that data up to the internet where that data can be visualized, it can be viewed anywhere, it can help you make intelligent decisions about the products that you have out there in the field. So at a very simple level, it's the foundation of connecting things out in the field and bringing that data up to the internet into a software platform where you can utilize and visualize that data.
So then you open up some kind of a dashboard and you can see the communication from those things in the field. They're sending you information.
That's exactly right. Once you collect that information and you're creating a data stream where one did not previously exist, exactly, that information is going to go into a dashboard. It's going to go into a software program through a URL, so a web-based software, also mobile applications. And that's a big trend that we're seeing today, Kevin, is For the enterprise, having the dashboard through a web-based browser, but then the end users having mobile applications, a lighter version of it, so they can utilize that data in the field as well.
Very good. So let's drill down just a little bit. A particular thing, even a pump, let's say in the oil industry, that pump may have a whole variety of different sensors, not just one sensor, right?
That is correct. Depending on the machine, it could be as simple as one sensor. It could be as complicated with a variable frequency drive of several hundreds of data points coming into a simple place. So for the industrial Internet of Things to make sense, you've got to be able to collect a lot of data and bring that data up.
Okay, so if we step back then and we look at an Internet of Things ecosystem, there could potentially be thousands of sensors, hundreds of things, and they're all sending data into your dashboard. Is that correct?
That is correct. So obviously, the cloud is going to come into play here where the data is hosted, where the data resides. And it's important to have, for industrial manufacturers, a cloud neutral platform as well. Some manufacturers, when they start this digital journey, they don't have any infrastructure. They've got a non-intelligent product in the field. That client may need the cloud infrastructure as well, and we can help them provide that. Other manufacturers, depending on their R&D cycles, they may have invested, it could be Amazon Web Services, whomever it might be, they may have a cloud platform already. So now that data is being fed into a platform that they already have, so they can utilize investments that they've already made.
Thank you for that. So let's introduce a concept here that many are familiar with, but some may not be, is digital twin. Once you have sensors on all these devices, instead of having those orphan baby things sitting out there disconnected, you suddenly have replaced the blind spot with an active visual, if you would, a data visualization of an object out there. You now have a digital twin in the field. So yes, you now can bring that thing from the field. The digital version is now on your dashboard. You see what's happening in real time right there on your dashboard. What is the value of that?
There's an incredible value of that, and I'm glad that you bring that concept of digital twin to the table, Kevin. The concept of digital twin, if you think about a manufacturer in a world before a connected device, they have a support division. They've got an 800 number that their customers call them and say, hey, I'm having a problem with my thing. It's not performing, or maybe it needs maintenance, whatever it is. So if you picture that support call before digitizing the product and before creating a digital twin, it's almost like the blind leading the blind. Okay, I've got the support call on my end at the manufacturer. Okay, client, end user, what is your machine telling you? What does it say on the screen? How is it behaving? Describe that to me. So you can imagine a very long, somewhat frustrating phone call to solve a simple problem. By having a digital twin, the manufacturer is now seeing exactly what that end user client is seeing, so they can resolve the problem in an exponentially decreased time. They can have a happy customer. They can reduce any amount of downtime. They can have that machine back up and running. So there's the value to the end user in optimizing uptime, but there's also an incredible value through that digital twin concept, Kevin, of decreasing the time spent on each one of those phone calls. When you decrease the cost, when you look at this at scale and you're looking at time, that is one of the biggest factors that a support organization of a large manufacturer looks like, is the cost of supporting their product. That digital twin greatly reduces that cost.
Oh, I can see how that would be the case. Now, a number of years ago, there was a disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, and BP's oil rig exploded and lots of people lost their life, and there's an environmental disaster. In the post-incident report that came out, I was reading it, and it said that the managers were inundated or overwhelmed with data. So there was a paralysis caused by the inflow of just massive amounts of data. That was an example of having tons of kind of sensor data feeding in, but no real step-by-step what to do with the data at that moment. How do companies kind of address that today? Are they using artificial intelligence? Are they using analytics that recommend specific steps be done? How does that work in the out there in the industrial world today?
That's a great example that you give, Kevin, because what I like to refer to that is when manufacturers begin connecting their products, there is a risk of what I call death by data. And we're firm believers, and I'm personally a believer in data for data's sake isn't good enough. It's almost that garbage in, garbage out kind of mentality in computer programming. When a client begins their digital journey and they start identifying the data that they want to see, either through that digital twin or data that's going to feed an analytics platform, defining the needs of what you want to capture and defining the outcomes that you want to see from that data are paramount in avoiding that paralysis that you described with that situation. And to do that, there's a variety of tools. As we get into the next layers after that foundation of IIoT, when you are talking about things like machine learning, data analytics platforms, that's where that data really becomes intelligible and actionable and helps you avoid that paralysis and death by data scenario.
Got it. So I imagine when you sit down with some of these manufacturers, originally, the whole idea of adding sensors and platforms and support and communications and security and analytics and processes and AI and et cetera, seems overwhelming. How do you make it simple so people know how to start?
I love that you asked that question. We talked about all these air miles that I've had several meetings just in the last 10 days. When we start to talk about the data points that they want to collect from the field, the first question that we ask is a simple one. One word: why? Why do you want that data? And it's funny how often that makes that client who's just embarking on this digital journey really step back and analyze what they're doing. And the more work that any of us put in, to our day-to-day jobs, the more work you put in up front, the better product and the better result you're going to get out of it. So it's just asking that simple question of why. What does this data mean to you? What does it mean to your end user? What does it mean even to the middle part of the stream, to the distribution channel? Why do you want that data? And then we start the conversation on why, and then we get into how to present that data so they can use it intelligibly.
Got it. Because I can imagine trying to take the complexity out of that is probably a pretty important part of your business.
It is one of the most important parts of our business. Again, I keep going back to manufacturers embarking on this digital journey, and the start of it, Kevin, can be daunting. It can be overwhelming, and it can feel very complex and complicated. When I sit down with a client, the first thing I talk about is, let's reduce this to the most simple applications. Let's ask why you need that data. What do you want that data to do for you? And really, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not talk about self-healing machines 5 years from now. Let's talk about those first steps, that foundation of collecting the data, making those decisions, asking those why questions of what you're going to do with it. And by creating a simplified process, it allows these manufacturers to make decisions to enter the digital marketplace. If they approach it with too much complexity, just like you and I do in our day-to-day lives, if things are complex, we're going to pause on making the decision until we have more information. If we boil it down to the most simple applications and the simple information at our fingertips, it's easy to get started.
Got it. So let's make the assumption that everything is functioning, the data is coming into your platform. Now, where do you start adding analytics that add value, support for defined processes so that you know where the sensor data is coming into the process at the right place so it makes sense to you? So I'm getting this reading from this part of the process, this reading from this part of the process, and then you have a master kind of overview of the whole system, and you can analyze the performance of the whole system. And then where does AI fit in, artificial intelligence? Where does that fit into this whole ecosystem?
Sure. Again, it's asking the why question, creating that data stream, and bringing simple data in to visualize it and to make some decisions. You know, it's kind of the old adage, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And when we work with the manufacturers, when they start to have this data at their fingertips, and we sit in these meetings, the brainstorming sessions, if you will, all the different stakeholders of these organizations, from the engineering team to the product development team, to the service and maintenance organizations, to the sales and marketing team, they all start looking at this data and saying, there is a unique value for each one of our organizations. So now we're kind of breaking that down with individual discussions with each organization and saying, again, why do you want this data? What do you want to do with this data? So again, it starts simply. Once you start to collect all these data points over time, this is when the next layer comes in of the analytics platforms, the artificial intelligence. Once you start getting a lot of data, and that data, believe me, once you start connecting devices, you get a lot of data very quickly, and you've got to have a plan on how to manage it. And that's ultimately where the analytics platforms come in, that AI idea and concept comes in to even get more value out of the data that you created.
Very good. So it's not just a one-way movement of data from a sensor into your dashboard, right? There must be a capability of also turning things on and off and adjusting things through a digital interface. How does that all work?
You know, and that's so important because there's monitoring for monitoring's sake, you know, creating that digital twin, like we said, to have a visualization of it. But there is that two-way communication. When you get into more of the machine language, and I'll use a variable frequency drive as an example, and you have hundreds of data points coming into a single place, two-way communication allows programming of that device remotely as well. So you can start to think of the value that adds, again, for a manufacturer, and then downstream all the way to the end user. Just a simple example, again, reducing this to the most simple example, would be somebody has a remote asset 50 miles away, and they're changing some of the parameters in that drive, let's say. They need to change some set points on pressure settings or flow readings, whatever it may be. Time is money. In today's economy, we're all doing more with less. So that one time you can save somebody that 50-mile drive each way to program something that takes 10 minutes on site, and you can spend 10 minutes on your dashboard, on your computer, on your smartphone or tablet. Now the value starts to grow exponentially, just in that time is money type of concept. So having two-way communication is paramount to drive ultimate value out of the industrial Internet of Things.
And I imagine that as soon as you start getting that two-way communication, it becomes exponentially important to have the right kind of security so you don't have some hacker taking over and controlling your machines.
100%. You know, there's so many examples today, and I'm not one, and I know you're not that guy either. When those breaches happen, we don't call out the companies that they happen to because they can really happen to anybody. With the industrial Internet of Things, it's important from day one to identify the value of security, to have the right protocols in place. And what we preach to our clients is that both we and you, the manufacturer, have to remain ever vigilant. I'll give you a really great example. Think about the earliest version of the Norton antivirus software. Earliest versions. Is anybody running that software today? It was all figured out, right? So even the security that we run on our own systems, on our own personal devices, is always evolving. We personally are remaining ever vigilant, and that's how you have to approach security with the industrial Internet of Things.
Wow. With that, let's look toward the future, Terrence. Where do you see your company in particular? You know, what do you see coming over the next 36 months?
What we see coming over the 36 months, you know, number one is going to be a lot more air miles. Manufacturers today, Kevin, you know, we've been doing this at AMI Global for 9 years. And my joke is always, in dog years, that's about 40 years. In IIoT years, that's about 40 years. It's a long time because so much has happened. As the technology continues to evolve, there are going to be so many new values that we can deliver to manufacturers. So our focus will continue to be on digitizing industrial manufacturers' products. I look at it this way, Kevin. The big push today is in the digital factory, digitizing the factory floor. Our approach is taking those products that a digital factory is producing and manufacturing and making them digital. So the trends that we're going to see over the next few years are going to grow so fast. You're in this business, you see how things are happening out there. When we talk about artificial intelligence, when we talk about machine learning, we're going to see things in the very near future, and this might sound like a heady concept, of self-healing machines. That's where this is going. Machines are going to be able to make their own decisions, and that all starts by connecting them and putting in the right algorithms and doing it the right way. So our focus is going to continue to be on building that foundational layer for our clients and road mapping that next 36 months of how these solutions are going to evolve and how we can continue to drive new value to the manufacturer, to the end user. And I'm going to introduce something else to you right now. Also, industrial manufacturers are selling their products traditionally, especially in North America, through distribution channels. So many manufacturers, when they approach this, Kevin, they say, there's a lot of value in IIoT for us. There's a lot of value in IIoT for our end user. And I sit down and I say, you're missing a big component here. What about that distribution channel? So if a trend today is digital factories, part of that is digital supply chain. We're taking it to a level of talking about a digital distribution model. And those are some big trends that you're going to see happening, and we're going to continue to drive that.
All right. Well, that's going to be a fascinating journey to watch and to participate in as well. With that, Terrence, I want to thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And matter of fact, there's a brand new website, AMIglobal.com. That's right, Terrence?
Yeah, we've had the website for years. We just put a fresh coat of paint on it because so many things are happening so quickly. So AMIglobal.com. Get a look at what we're doing out there. It's exciting stuff. And Kevin, I really appreciate talking to you today, as always, and doing this interview. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks, Terrence. I want to thank everyone out there that's watching as well. Thanks again. Bye-bye.